Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday with me, Ryan, aka Mac. This is a weekly show which covers everything from the world of Star Citizen over the past week. Links to everything discussed can be found in the description below, so let's get on with it. This week we hear more regarding the first pass of the economy system, see how FPS Weapons come to life, plus a first look at the Squadron 42 Marine BDUs. Just want to give a big shout out to Exodus for becoming my latest patron. Thank you so much for your support, sir. If you are interested in supporting my channel via Patreon, helping me to create videos like these, follow the link below. So in Around the Verse, the Sabre is currently on a free fly for anyone interested in trying the game out. You don't need to buy anything, you just need to have signed up and created an account. But honestly, no money needs to be spent. So try it out, give it a go, and don't forget to use my referral code as seen on the top left of the screen. So the studio update came from Austin. They say they're working on the first pass of trade. They're designing the next round of shops after 2.6.2 patch. The initial list of commodities, places to buy and sell, plus the variable economy. The goal is to have a functioning, fluctuating economy which mirrors the real world. Goods will start in their sort of natural state or mined, then they'll go into refineries or into manufacturing, and then they'll be buyable and tradable. Player actions can affect the flow of resources. In turn, they'll affect the supply and demand. So, for example, if a trade lane gets disrupted, this will change both the prices, the quantities, and the demands of that product. They will start with a basic structure, and I think they're starting with things like gases, foods, medical supplies, and vice like drugs. And then after that comes the more defined commodities like gold, hydrogen, rations, and bandages. They're just going to get the core economic structure in place, and then they'll iterate upon that one. For the next major release, they're adding a new location called Truck Stop. They felt it would be weird to sell to shops directly, so they've created a new shop type called Admin Office, where it sort of focuses on buying and selling from your local stores. This place will also control local storage rentals and a job board so you can complete and plan deliveries. It will be found in the majority of locations which do not have a TDD or a trade and development division. For the first iteration, prices won't fluctuate too much until it's more further fleshed out, and then they'll sort of let loose. But it will help them figure out the rewards, the profit margins, and the fun. So, how much you will earn for a particular job. In art, the lighting are doing some of the locations for Squadron 42, and we saw a little bit of this. It looks very, very cool. I cannot wait to explore these places. But they're going back to the Retaliator and the Constellation and improving the lighting there as well. The shop art team, they're working on the Cutlass. It's still in grey box, but they're concentrating on the geometry and the material work. They're adding detail from the Caterpillar and the first pass lighting as well as the animations for it. So you can see it's got a big Herald influence with the thrusters, the landing gear, and the ladder. It does look like a nice mixture of the Caterpillar and the Herald, as it's Drake. They've finished the grey box phase for the Miss Prospector. Now they're moving on to animation, and they're also finalising all the Buccaneer animations. For the Persistent Universe animations, the NPCs are getting work on for environmental interactions, specifically for the females. They're also researching better ways to implement the hundreds of animations quicker than the current method. So they're always evolving, very much like you see with the ship pipelines and so forth. It just makes it so much quicker. But they've begun work with the mess hall table, creating an entire eating experience from start to finish. So grabbing a tray, finding a table, sitting and eating and interacting with things on the table, and then they stand up, dispose of the tray, and go about the business. They've also enhanced multi-region support, doing some fixes and tweaks to the party system, contacts, and friends. The new backend service also allows for a greater number of players with improved stability, which is always good to know. After this, we spoke to Turbulent for a little Spectrum update. They're gathering the feedback, looking at the issue council, and finding short-term and long-term fixes. They're also adding more stuff to it. Soon we'll have mobile apps native to each platform as well. They're working on a simple voice chat. They're launching features fast and then implementing, not the other way around. So they're getting it in the game, and then they can get all our feedback and sort it out there. They do want a command and a squadron channel. This is very interesting to cast to sub-channel. So very much like you see with TeamSpeak, you can have a main priority channel for the officers, and then the staff lower than that will be able to work on it in their own channel, and so on and so forth, just to sort of organise and make sure that everyone's listening to what they need to be listening to. But they've been spending the week planning the in-game integration for voice. I hope that comes pretty soon. It sounds like it will do. Now, to finish off with, they did a sort of weapons pipeline or development for Star Marine, mainly focused on the new Bearing P8. It shows the concept, animation, etc. I may do a separate video on all of this, but they sort of want to replicate the look, the feel, and the sound of real-world weapons, starting with the high-level write-up, so the manufacturer, the type, how it's going to behave, And then they look at the goals for the weapon. Now the Bearing P8 is the new gold standard for weapons, so that is the level that they want all the weapons. That's why they're reiterating on the weapons now. They check the concepts with the real life sort of weapon replicas and then adjust the concept block out to make it more realistic. They create the mesh and the LODs. Then it goes to animators and riggers, sort of the moving parts, the reloads, making they all look good. They also want to make sure the sounds are amazing, so that it'll sound different from first and third person, plus the different directions which the sound's coming from. There are multiple layers of audio for weapon firing. It's not like you see in most games. Then they get it in game, make sure it feels correct. They smooth the edges, make it less blocky, add the decals, sort of the branding, the textures of the manufacturer, and then they create the dirt, which is sort of wear and tear by hand and with sort of real-time effects. It does look incredible, this new dirt feature. But when it comes to the firing impacts, so each weapon will have a different impact depending on the surface it's hitting. So ice will have fragments, metal will spark, dust from things like cloth. It does look very, very cool. So much level of details here. It's just incredible the work they're doing. And that's just on weapons alone. Anyway, that was around the verse. Let's move on to the happy hour. So in this week's happy hour, we had Sean Tracy, Jake Ross and Stephen Bender just talking about general things in general and what they do and what they're working on. They said that the first step when it comes to character creation will be selecting a head, then selecting your body, then your clothes and your armor, and then the customization comes in, so you can pull around the face and make your character sort of more how you want it to be, as well as things like colouring your armor, your clothing and so forth. They said they do want full beards and fun ones too, so we'll have to wait and see for that one. But the next question was regarding helmet hoods and ship hoods and whether or not we'll be using helmet hoods while in the ship. And they say that pretty much every ship will have their own MFDs or multifunction displays, and your helmet hood will be more personal to your character, like for example the amount of oxygen that character has. So when it comes to the first and third person animations, obviously these are unified, they're not separate animations. What you see in first person is the exact same in the third. And they're working currently on getting the railgun to feel like it should do. This is a personal ship destruction weapon. So it's for the players. The characters hold them themselves. And it's to take down ships. It needs to feel very heavy and impressive. So they're working to make sure that feels right. They're also working on getting the oxygen and stamina, getting that looking as correct as it should be. So when you start losing your oxygen levels, will go down, your vision will change and blur. They're also continuing with some other new weapons. They say it's all about making sure everything feels right, including the other animations, not just for FPS, things like exiting and getting into beds or sitting at chairs and tables. Everything they say they'll iterate upon until it feels like it should do. But this also includes the NPC, so having an NPC sit at a table and interact with items on the table. They want the AI to be able to pick up and interact with items around the environment, which also plays into it as well. And again, it's got to look right. If it doesn't look right, they'll keep working on it until it does. But the next question after that was to do with melee and hand-to-hand combat. And obviously we know they've got weapon butt hitting, as seen in Star Marine. They did say that if you have maybe a blade on the front like a bayonet, that would come in use. But they're looking to stealth kills, and this is something we saw on the Homestead demo. You can stab people. There's sort of four quadrants of taking down someone in a stealth kill. You've got it from the back, face to face, or left or right side. There is currently a design discussion on full hand-to-hand combat. They did some rough blockouts for punching and blocking, but they say don't get too hyped just yet. It's not going to be as in depth as they think, as you know, as we were told a while ago. We did get told ages ago that there will be martial arts and you can learn a martial art, maybe a Jean martial art and so forth. This was all speculation and sort of possibilities. For all we know, they may go full in depth with hand-to-hand combat and we can have fight clubs and all sorts. I don't know. It just depends on how far they get with the tech. There's a lot involved, especially with animation. Obviously, if you're fighting someone, they've got to be included in a certain bubble, a fighting bubble. But you never know. They may have some sort of physical deflection thing. But we will see more on Melee later this year. Someone asked about animal animations and plant animations, and animals will have proper animation sets. They will be design driven, so whatever the animal looks like will determine how it moves. Obviously, they said you can't have a space deer doing jiu-jitsu, which makes sense. But anyway, plants will have natural bending in the wind. Plus, if you're walking through plants and grass, they will move naturally. Atmospheric flight, planet gravity was the next question, and it's already been done. They're not sure if it's variable, but the planets do have gravity themselves, and they do vary per planet, but it will be different eventually per gravity. That will affect your ship as you enter these different planets, so that will eventually be a thing. And that was about it, but we did get to see a little FPS area where they work out all the bugs and the kinks. And you saw him just running through each section or each area of this FPS level, making sure everything works smoothly. We saw some of the new weapons as well, still to make it into the game. In fact, there seems to be more weapons unavailable than there are available. Hopefully this will come with 3.0, as well as some sort of grabby hand stuff. It does look very cool. I'll have that playing in the background. It's probably already started. But the weapons look incredible. I can't wait to get hold of them. Also this week there was a new Kaizen post titled Human Jan Trade Initiative Unveiled, Lawmakers brought us the Keel system, and finally, March subscriber flare is a framed in-fiction magazine called Hitbox. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our subscribers, plus a massive thank you to our patrons as you make this possible. If you like what we do and want to help us make it better, follow the link in the description to our Patreon page to learn more.